I want you to think about the last time you lost money on an investment. Maybe it was a stock that dropped 40%. Maybe it was crypto in 2022. Maybe it was something smaller, a fund that just quietly bled out over 18 months while you weren't paying attention. Now, I want you to think about what you did next. Did you sell? Did you freeze? Did you tell yourself you'd look at it later and then not open the app for 3 months? Because here's the thing nobody in personal finance will tell you. That decision, the one you made in the days after the loss, almost certainly cost you more money than the original loss did.
Not the crash, not the bad pick, the response. And I can prove it with math, which is exactly what we're going to do today. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about the moments that define someone's entire financial future. If you're someone who has made an investing mistake, lost money on a stock, bought at the wrong time, watched a position collapse, and you're not sure what to do next, or whether you even want to keep going, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this ends up helping you out. Because today, we're talking about something the personal finance world almost never discusses. Not how to avoid your first investing mistake. Everyone talks about that. We're talking about what happens after. What that experience does to your brain, what it does to your behavior, and why the investors who eventually build real wealth are almost always the ones who lost money first and responded to it in one very specific way. According to FINRA, 58% of Americans who have ever invested in individual stocks have experienced a significant loss, 20% or more, at least once. More than half. You are not an outlier. You are the average investor. The question is just what happens next. Here's the thing. There's this idea in investing that the goal is to never lose money, to be so well-researched, so careful, so disciplined that you skip the painful part entirely and go straight to the gains. And that idea is not just wrong, it's actually dangerous. Because here's what most people don't realize. A loss that you experience early, that you feel in your stomach, that keeps you up at night, that makes you question everything, is one of the most valuable financial events that can happen to you, if you respond to it correctly. Let me give you some context on just how universal this is. According to a 2022 report by FINRA, approximately 58% of Americans who have ever invested in individual stocks report having experienced a significant loss, meaning 20% or more, at least once. 58%. That's not a minority experience. That's the majority of investors. And yet, almost nobody talks about it openly. You don't see the finance influencers posting about the $8,000 they lost on a single trade. You see the wins. You see the portfolios going up and to the right. The losses happen in private, and they stay in private, which means every new investor thinks they're the only one who has been here. You're not. You're in the majority. Here's something I want you to sit with for a second. Think about the story you told yourself about why you lost money. Was it, the market is rigged? I got unlucky. I'm just not cut out for this. Because that story, not the loss itself, is what's going to determine your financial future. And most people never examine it. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because the research on what happens after a first significant loss is genuinely fascinating, and almost nobody in the finance content world ever covers it. Studies on investor behavior, particularly research out of Dalbar, which has tracked investor returns versus market returns for over 30 years, consistently show a massive gap. Over the last 20 years, the S&P 500 has returned an average of around 9.8% per year. The average equity fund investor, around 6.4% per year. That 3.4% gap isn't explained by fees. It isn't explained by bad fund selection. It's explained almost entirely by behavior, by what investors do after something goes wrong. And after a first major loss, something happens that the data captures, but that almost no one talks about out loud. Investors split. Not by income level, not by education, not by how smart they are. They split by what story they tell themselves about what just happened. Before I describe the two groups, I want you to make a mental note of which one you think you are. because most people guess wrong. The first group, let's call them the retreaters, respond to the loss by pulling back. They get out of the position, maybe get out of the market entirely, and they don't come back until things feel safe again. Which, by the way, is usually when prices are high. Everyone is optimistic, and they're essentially buying back in near the top of the next cycle. The second group, let's call them the learners, respond differently. They feel the same pain. They're equally shaken, but they do something specific with that experience that changes everything. And we're going to talk about exactly what that is. But first, let me show you the math on what separates these two groups over time, because this is the part that should genuinely alarm you. Here's what gets me about the retreaters. They almost never think of themselves as retreating. They call it being careful. They call it waiting for the right time. They call it doing more research. The language of caution is almost identical to the language of wisdom, which is exactly why it's so hard to see when you're inside it. So now you know the two types of investors, and you probably already know which one you've been. But here's what I haven't told you yet. The actual math of what that choice costs you in real dollars over a real lifetime. Because when I show you the number in part 2, and I'm going to show you the exact number, most people watch it twice because it doesn't feel real. Part 2 is already up. I'll see you there.